A housekeeper, making $11.40 an hour, found $50,000 in cash tucked inside a pillowcase at a Las Vegas hotel. Room 2714. Mile 8 of a 10-hour shift. Her husband needed surgery. The kind insurance doesn't cover. But she didn't take it. She wasn't a thief. She wasn't naive. She wasn't rich enough to not need it. She was something Las Vegas had almost no room for. $50,000. Enough to save the person she loved most. Enough to disappear into. She held it in her hands for 6 minutes. Everyone assumed she'd keep it. The floor manager assumed it. Her own sister assumed it. That is not what happened. If this story hits you, subscribe. What would you have done? Room 2714 smelled like cigarettes and regret. The guest had checked out 6 hours ago, but left behind the kind of mess that told a story. Champagne bottle on the nightstand. Empty. 3 room service trays stacked near the door, 2 untouched. Towels on the bathroom floor twisted into shapes that suggested celebration or collapse. Maybe both. Priscilla pushed her cart through the doorway at 7:48 inches the evening. Mile 8 of a 10-hour shift. Her back had started hurting at mile 3. By mile 6, it had stopped hurting and gone numb, which was worse because numb meant her body had given up complaining and started just surviving. The hallway behind her stretched long and fluorescent. 14 rooms cleaned. 6 to go. The taste of instant coffee still sitting bitter on her tongue from a break she took standing up in a supply closet because the break room was on a floor she did not have time to reach. She stripped the bed first. Pillowcases, then the flat sheet, then the fitted sheet that fought her at every corner. She moved with the mechanical rhythm of a woman who had cleaned 2,000 rooms and remembered none of them. Spray. Wipe. Strip. Fold. Vacuum. Next. The minibar had been raided. She logged the missing bottles on her tablet. She scrubbed the bathroom sink where someone had left toothpaste smeared across the marble like a signature. She wiped the mirror. Her own reflection stared back at her for half a second. Tired eyes. Hair pinned flat under the hotel cap. A face that had learned long ago not to expect anything from the rooms it cleaned except more rooms. The envelope was under the mattress. Not hidden exactly, but not visible either. Wedged between the mattress and the box spring on the left side, the side closest to the window. As if someone had tucked it there before sleep and forgotten it in the blur of checkout, Priscilla almost missed it. She only found it because the corner of the manila edge caught the light when she lifted the mattress to tuck the fresh sheet. She pulled it out. It was thick, heavy, unsealed. She opened the flap the way you open something when you already sense the weight of it is wrong. Cash. Banded stacks of $100 bills. 5 of them. Each band printed with the number 10,000. She counted them once with her eyes. Then she counted them again with her fingers, peeling back each stack just enough to confirm it was real. Her hands were shaking by the second count. Not from excitement. From something closer to vertigo. The feeling you get when the ground beneath your life shifts, and suddenly you are standing at an edge you did not know existed. $50,000. The number filled the room like a pressure change. Like the walls leaned in. Beneath the cash, a Nevada driver's license. Dominic Sharp. Brown eyes. 6'1". An address in Henderson. And a business card. Thick stock, embossed lettering. Sharp Capital Ventures. The man had a title with the word founding in it, and a phone number with a 702 area code. Priscilla stood there holding the envelope with both hands. The air conditioning hummed above her. The hallway was empty. The security camera outside the door pointed at the elevator bank 20 feet to the left, which meant it did not see the inside of this room. Nobody saw the inside of this room. Nobody saw her hands or her face, or the way her chest rose and fell too fast. She looked down at the money. 5 neat stacks. Crisp bills that smelled like nothing, because new money has no smell. It just has weight and promise, and the quiet power to remake a life or destroy one depending on what you do in the next 60 seconds. Her phone buzzed in her apron pocket. A text from her mother-in-law. Kiara's bedtime photo. The girl was grinning, gap-toothed, holding up a crayon drawing of a house with her left hand, the prosthetic one, the one that did not bend at the wrist quite right and had a hairline crack, running along the thumb that Priscilla had glued shut twice already, because a replacement cost $11,000 and insurance called it elective. Kiara's smile in that photo was the kind of smile that does not know how expensive it is to maintain. A child's smile. Ordinary and devastating. Priscilla looked at the photo. She looked at the money. She looked at the photo again. And in that room on the 27th floor of a hotel, where people gambled away in one night what she earned in a year, something cracked open inside her chest. Not greed. Something worse. Hope, the most dangerous thing a poor person can feel. Because hope without means is just a rehearsal for the grief that follows when you do the right thing, and the right thing costs you everything. She put the envelope in her cart, beneath the dirty towels, beneath the used sheets. She finished the room. She clocked out at 9:15. She drove home in a car with a cracked windshield and a gas light that had been on since Tuesday. And she did not sleep. Priscilla Herrera lived in a 2-bedroom apartment on the east side of Las Vegas, in a complex where the pool had been drained for 3 years and nobody asked why anymore. The rent was $1,400 a month. She earned $11.40 an hour. 40 hours a week if the schedule held, which it often did not, because the hotel cut shifts when occupancy dropped, and occupancy always dropped in the dead weeks between holidays, when the tourists went home, and the hallways went quiet and the housekeepers became the first line. Item management reached for when the spreadsheet needed trimming. Her husband, Marco, had been a framer. Commercial construction, the kind of work where you stand on scaffolding 60 feet above a concrete slab and trust the bolts and the harness and the man beside you to keep the structure from shifting under your weight. Marco trusted all three. On a Tuesday in March, 2 of them failed. The scaffolding buckled. The harness caught, but caught wrong, snapping his body sideways against a steel beam before the line went taut. He fell 19 feet. He landed on his back. Spinal cord injury, T12 vertebra, partial paralysis below the waist. The doctors used words like incomplete and encouraging prognosis and potential for recovery, words that sounded like hope but came with price tags that erased it. The average lifetime cost of a spinal cord injury in the United States ranges between $1 and $5 million depending on severity. Marco's surgery alone cost $140,000. The rehabilitation facility charged $3,000 a week. Insurance covered 60% for the first 6 months, then 40%, then began sending letters with words like exceeded and maximum benefit and out of network that meant the same thing every time. You are on your own. Marco came home in a wheelchair he did not own. It was rented, $280 a month. The apartment was not built for a wheelchair. The bathroom door was too narrow. The kitchen counter was too high. The hallway between the bedroom and the living room had a carpet ridge that caught the wheels every single time, and every single time Marco had to back up and try again, and every single time he said nothing about it because he had stopped talking about the things that humiliated him, which by then was almost everything. He could not work. He could not drive. He could not pick up his daughter. He sat in the living room and watched the window and waited for Priscilla to come home so he could ask her how her day was in a voice that carried the particular weight of a man who used to build things and now watched his wife build their pair. Survival alone. Priscilla never complained. Not once. Not to Marco. Not to her mother-in-law. Not to the woman at the hospital billing office who called every Tuesday at 4 p.m. with the same polite reminder that their balance had grown again. She taped the bills to the refrigerator. Not to torture herself. Because if they were visible, she could plan around them, and planning was the only thing she had left that felt like control. The refrigerator told the whole story. Electric bill, water bill, rent past due, hospital invoice, pharmacy receipt for Marco's nerve medication, $210 a month, no generic available. Kiara's prosthetic maintenance estimate. And at the bottom, held by a magnet shaped like a cactus that Kiara had picked out at a gas station, a school photo. Kiara in a blue shirt, her prosthetic hand resting on the desk beside her real one, smiling like the world was simple. That hand. Kiara had been born without a fully formed left hand, a condition the doctors called symbrachydactyly. It meant her fingers had not developed past the first knuckle. She had been fitted with a prosthetic at age 4. a basic myoelectric device that opened and closed with muscle signals from her forearm. It worked, mostly. But Kiara was growing. The socket no longer fit right, the wrist joint stuck. The cosmetic glove had torn twice and been patched with medical tape that Priscilla cut into strips the exact width of a child's finger because she could not afford a new glove and refused to let her daughter walk into school with a created hand that looked broken. A proper upgrade, a multi-articulating prosthetic with individual finger movement and a fitted socket. Cost between $40,000 and $80,000. Insurance classified it as a non-essential enhancement. Priscilla had appealed twice, denied twice. She kept the denial letters in a folder in the kitchen drawer beside the coupons. In America, 66% of all bankruptcies are tied to medical costs. Not because people are irresponsible. Because the math is impossible. You cannot earn $11.40 an hour and outrun a system that charges $140,000 to fix a broken back and $80,000 to give a child a working hand. The numbers do not add up. They were never designed to. Priscilla cleaned rooms that cost more per night than she made in a week. She vacuumed suites where guests left tips smaller than her daughter's pharmacy copay. She scrubbed bathtubs in penthouses where the complimentary bath products cost more than the shampoo she bought for Kiara at the dollar store. The lavender one. The one Kiara loved because it made her hair smell like a garden. Every night after her shift, Priscilla drove home in the dark, heated up whatever she had prepped on Sunday, kissed Kiara, checked Marco's medication, set her alarm for 5 a.m., and lay down in a bed she shared with a man who could no longer hold her the way he used to. She stared at the ceiling. She did the math. And the math always said the same thing. Not enough. Never enough. And on this particular night, with $50,000 sitting inside a manila envelope tucked behind the winter coats in her closet, the math said something new. Something terrifying. Enough. The apartment was dark. Marco had gone to bed at 9. The way he always did now, because the pain medication pulled him under like a tide, and fighting it took energy he no longer had. Kiara was asleep in her room. The glow in the dark stars on her ceiling cast faint green light across her face. She slept with her prosthetic hand off, resting on the nightstand like something borrowed that she returned every night. Priscilla sat at the kitchen table with the envelope in front of her. She did not open it. She did not need to. She had counted the money 6 times already, twice at the hotel and 4 times since she got home. Not because she doubted the amount, but because counting gave her hands something to do while her mind tore itself apart. $50,000. She whispered it to herself the way someone whispers a word they are afraid to say out loud, because once it is in the air, it becomes real and real things demand decisions. $50,000 was Marco's surgery. The one, the specialist in Phoenix said, could restore partial mobility in his legs if they acted within the next 18 months before the nerve damage became permanent. The one that cost $62,000 out of pocket, and the one Priscilla had placed in a mental drawer labeled impossible, and locked it and tried never to open it, except on the nights she could not sleep, which was most nights. $50,000 was a new arm for Kiara. Not the patched and cracked device she wore now, but a real prosthetic, one that moved like a hand, gripped like a hand, let a little girl tie her own shoes and hold a pencil with 10 fingers instead of 5, and stop explaining to classmates why her hand looked different. $50,000 was 4 months of bills. Gone. The refrigerator door wiped clean. No more Tuesday phone calls. No more past due notices. No more choosing between Marco's medication and Kiara's socket adjustment because both were due the same week and both cost more than what was left after rent. No one would know. The guest had checked out. The room had been cleaned. The cameras did not reach inside. The hotel's lost and found policy gave guests 30 days to claim items, and after that, the property was donated or discarded. $50,000 in cash had no tracking number, no serial log, no digital trail. It was ghost money. The kind of money that exists only when someone is holding it and disappears the moment they let go. All she had to do was nothing. Just silence. Just stillness. Just let the envelope stay behind the winter coats and let 30 days pass, and let the money become hers the way water becomes yours when it falls on your land. Nobody would come looking. Nobody ever came looking for the things poor people found because nobody expected poor people to find anything worth keeping. But Priscilla could not stop seeing Kiara's face. Not the smiling face from the bedtime photo. A different face. A future face. The face her daughter would make 5 years from now. Maybe 10, when she was old enough to understand where the money came from. When she asked the question every child eventually asks when the math of their family does not add up, where did it come from? And Priscilla would have to answer. She would have to look at her daughter, at that girl with the patched hand, and the lavender shampoo, and the gap-toothed grin, and she would have to lie. Or she would have to tell the truth, and the truth would teach Kiara something no prosthetic could fix. It would teach her that when things got hard enough, her mother became someone else. That integrity was a luxury. That honesty was something you practiced only when you could afford it. Priscilla stared at the envelope. She pressed her palms flat against the table. She closed her eyes, and she saw Kiara. Not the Kiara sleeping in the next room, but a grown Kiara. 17. 18. Standing in a doorway asking a question with her eyes that her mouth did not need to speak. Did you earn this? And that question, that silent, invisible question from a daughter who did not yet know she was asking it, was the thing that stopped Priscilla's hand. Not morality in the abstract, not the law, not fear of getting caught. A child's face, a child's future trust. The understanding that what she did tonight would echo forward into every conversation, every lesson, every moment she would ever try to teach her daughter about who they were and what they stood for. She sat at that table until 2 a.m. Then she put the envelope back behind the coats. She set her alarm. She lay down next to Marco and listened to him breathe. In the morning, she would give it back. Not because she was a saint, because she was a mother. And mothers carry the unbearable weight of being watched by the people they love most, even when those people are sleeping. The next morning, Priscilla arrived at the hotel 40 minutes before her shift. The lobby was half empty. 2 tourists wheeling luggage toward checkout. A security guard leaning against the bell desk, scrolling his phone. The morning light came through the glass entrance in long, flat sheets that turned the marble floor into a mirror. She went to the front desk first. She asked for the manager on duty. A woman named Sandra with reading glasses on a chain and a clipboard held against her chest like a shield. Priscilla told her she had found an envelope in room 2714 the previous evening, containing a large amount of cash and personal identification. She did not say how much. She did not say the name on the license. Sandra's expression changed 3 times in 4 seconds. Surprise, then suspicion, then something careful and practiced that hotel managers learn to wear when a situation moves beyond the scope of a normal shift. She asked Priscilla to wait. Priscilla waited. She stood near the service elevator with her hands clasped in front of her and her cart beside her, and she felt the eyes. The bellhop glanced. The front desk clerk looked up. A passing supervisor slowed his walk for half a step. Nobody said anything, but the air changed. A housekeeper standing in the lobby holding a conversation with management is a sight that generates its own gravity. People notice. People assume. Priscilla had expected this. She had expected to be looked at. What she had not expected was how familiar it felt. The same look the landlord gave her when she dropped off rent 3 days late. The same look the pharmacy tech gave her when she asked about generic alternatives. The look that says, "I am measuring you, and I have already decided what the measurement will show." Sandra returned with the head of security, a man named Cole with a shaved head and a radio clipped to his belt. He asked Priscilla to describe exactly where she found the envelope, what time, whether she had opened it, whether anyone else had seen it. She answered every question. She answered them clearly and calmly, and she did not look away, because looking away is what guilty people do in movies, and Priscilla was not guilty of anything except finding something that did not belong to her and choosing not to keep it. Cole pulled the security footage from the 27th floor. The camera outside room 2714 confirmed what Priscilla already knew. The guest, a man matching the ID, had checked in 2 nights prior and checked out at 1:30 p.m. No other visitors. No disturbances. The hallway camera showed Priscilla entering the room at 7:48 p.m. and exiting at 8:16 p.m. with her cart. 28 minutes. That was how long it took to clean a room and stumble into a decision that would change everything. Cole cross-referenced the guest name with the reservation system. Dominic Sharp. Checked in under a corporate account. Sharp Capital Ventures. 2-night stay. Suite rate, $1,100 per night. He had a phone number on file. Cole called it. No answer. He left a message. Professional, brief. The kind of voicemail that says important matter regarding your recent stay and nothing more. Then they waited. Priscilla asked if she could keep the envelope in the hotel safe rather than the lost and found. Not because she did not trust the system, because she had seen the lost and found room. She had cleaned it once. A shelf of forgotten chargers, sunglasses, a single earring, a Bible with someone's name written inside the cover, things that people left behind and never came back for. She did not want $50,000 sitting on a shelf next to a pair of reading glasses and a phone case from 2019. Cole agreed. The envelope was logged, sealed, and placed in the hotel safe. Priscilla signed a form. She clocked in. She began her shift, and somewhere in Henderson, a phone rang in an empty room, and a man named Dominic did not pick up because he had not yet realized what he had left behind. But he would. And when he did, he would drive back to Las Vegas, expecting to negotiate with management, expecting to fill out forms, expecting the efficient indifference of a corporation handling a liability. He was not expecting Priscilla. To understand what happened next, you have to understand who Dominic Sharp was before he became the man who lost $50,000 in a hotel room. You have to go back. Not to the penthouse in Henderson or the corner office at Sharp Capital. Further, to a Comfort Inn off Boulder Highway in 1996, where a woman named Gloria Sharp worked the housekeeping shift 5 nights a week and brought her son to the break room on days when the babysitter did not show up. Dominic was 9. He did his homework on a folding chair next to the vending machine. He drank orange soda from a plastic cup and listened to the hum of the ice machine and waited for his mother to finish cleaning rooms so they could drive home in a car with no air conditioning and windows that only opened halfway. Gloria was 31. She had come to Vegas from Memphis with 2 suitcases, a GED, and a son she had promised a better life in a city that sold better lives on billboards but rarely delivered them to the people who cleaned its sheets. She worked hard. She was good at her job. She never missed a shift. She never complained. And then one Tuesday in October, a guest in room 409 reported a gold bracelet missing from the nightstand. The hotel investigated. The cameras showed Gloria entering the room at 3:15 p.m. and leaving at 3:42 p.m. No one else entered after her. The bracelet was never found. Gloria said she did not take it. She said it every way she knew how. Calmly, then desperately, then through tears. She had no record. She had no history. She had 16 months of clean evaluations and a supervisor who said she was one of the best they had. None of it mattered. The hotel fired her within 48 hours. No formal investigation. No police report. No proof. Just an accusation from a guest with a platinum loyalty card and a housekeeper whose word weighed less than the card. Gloria never worked in a hotel again. The termination followed her. It showed up in background checks, in reference calls, in the hesitation of every manager who pulled her file and saw the words under reason for departure. She found work cleaning office buildings at night, then cleaning private homes, then cleaning nothing because her back gave out and the job stopped calling. She died when Dominic was 23. Heart failure. She was 55. She died in a 1-bedroom apartment in North Las Vegas with medical bills on the kitchen counter and a bracelet-shaped scar on her reputation that had never healed. Dominic paid for the funeral with the first real money he ever made, a commission from a property deal he had closed 3 days before she died. He buried her on a Friday. He went back to work on Monday. And he built an empire on top of her grave. Not because he wanted wealth, but because wealth was the only language the world understood, and he needed the world to listen when he said that his mother was not a thief. He never said it out loud. He said it with buildings, with investments, with a net worth that grew until no one would dare accuse him of anything without evidence. He said it with a penthouse where every surface was clean and every object was accounted for, and nothing was ever missing because Dominic Sharp had built his entire life around the terror of being accused of taking something that was not his. But here is the part he never told anyone. He believed it. Not about his mother. About everyone else. Somewhere deep in the architecture of his success, beneath the tailored suits in the corner office and the wine collection that filled an entire room, Dominic carried a belief as quiet and corrosive as acid on stone. People take things. When no one is watching, people take things. His mother was the exception. Everyone else was the rule. He believed the valet parked his car too far from the entrance because the man wanted time alone with the vehicle. He believed the contractor padded invoices because opportunity was another word for temptation. He believed the world operated on a simple engine. People behaved well only when they were being observed, and the moment the camera turned away, the hands moved. This is what money had taught him. Not generosity. Surveillance? Not trust. Verification. He counted everything. He audited everything. He kept records of records because a record without a backup was just a story someone could deny. And when he left that envelope under the mattress in room 2714, he did not realize it for 11 hours. He was halfway home, sitting in traffic on the I-15, when the absence hit him like a cold hand on the back of his neck. He pulled over. He checked his bag. He checked twice. Then he called the hotel. He expected the money to be gone. He expected to file a claim, argue with management, absorb the loss the way rich men absorb losses, with a sigh and a tax write-off and a quiet belief that the world had proven him right once again. Someone had taken it. Someone always takes it. He did not expect a voicemail from hotel security saying a member of the housekeeping staff had found the envelope and secured it in the hotel safe. He played that voicemail 3 times. A member of the housekeeping staff. He closed his eyes. And for the first time in 30 years, he saw his mother's face, not the tired face from the apartment. The young one, the one from the Comfort Inn break room, smiling at him over a folding chair while the vending machine hummed. A housekeeper found it, turned it in. He drove back to Las Vegas that night. Priscilla's shift ended at 6 p.m. She picked up Kiara from her mother-in-law's house at 6:40. The girl was sitting on the porch, steps drawing with markers. Her prosthetic hand holding the paper steady, while her right hand filled in a sky she had colored purple, because Kiara liked purple skies better than blue ones. Priscilla knelt down. She straightened the collar of Kiara's jacket. She looked at her daughter for a long time, the way parents look at their children when they have made a decision that will not make sense to anyone who does not love someone this way. "We are going to the hotel tomorrow," she said. "Both of us." Kiara looked up. "Why?" "Because Mama found something that belongs to someone else, and we are going to give it back." Kiara tilted her head. The prosthetic hand slid off the paper. She reached for her mother's face with her right hand, the real one, and pressed her palm against Priscilla's cheek, a thing she had done since she was 2, her version of reading a person's face. "Why can we not keep it? Because it is not ours. But we need things." 4 words, simple, true, the kind of sentence a child can say that a courtroom full of lawyers could spend a decade debating without reaching a better summary. We need things. Priscilla took Kiara's hand. She held the prosthetic one too, the cracked plastic thumb pressing against her fingers with the faint resistance of a device that was trying its best to work. "We do need things," she said. "But not like this. Never like this." The next morning was a Saturday. Priscilla dressed Kiara in her good shirt, the white one with the small embroidered flowers along the collar. She combed her hair and pulled it back with 2 clips. She put new socks on her, the only pair without a hole. Kiara wore her prosthetic hand without complaint. She had learned not to complain about it the same way Marco had learned not to complain about the carpet ridge. They took the bus. 2 transfers. 45 minutes from the east side to the Strip. Kiara pressed her face against the window the whole ride. She had been to the Strip only once before, a school field trip to a museum near the Venetian where the class walked through the lobby and Kiara stared at the ceiling painted like a sky and asked if people really lived here. The hotel lobby hit them like another country. Marble floors polished to a shine that reflected their shoes back at them. Chandeliers the size of small cars hanging from a ceiling so high it swallowed sound. Guests in clothes that had no wrinkles, and shoes that made no noise, and watches that caught the light the way Dominic's did in the photos Priscilla had seen in the business card search she ran on her phone the night before. Priscilla walked toward the front desk. Kiara held her hand. The prosthetic one. The security guard at the entrance looked at them for 1 second too long. Not hostile, not threatening. Just the look. The inventory look. The look that catalogs a person in a fraction of a second and files them under does not belong here. A bellhop turned his head. A woman at the concierge desk paused mid-sentence. And Kiara, walking beside her mother, through that cathedral of glass and marble, looked down at her own hand, the prosthetic one, and shifted it behind her body. She did it fast, a motion so practiced it was nearly invisible. An 11-year-old girl hiding the part of herself that drew stares. Priscilla saw it. She did not say anything, but she reached down and gently pulled Kiara's hand forward, back into view, and held it tighter. "They are not looking at your hand, baby." Kiara did not answer. She did not believe her. Children know when the world is staring, and children know what the world is staring at. They reached the front desk. Sandra was not on duty. A different manager appeared, younger, polite, the kind of polite that holds you at arm's length. Priscilla explained who she was. She explained about the envelope. She said she had been told the guest was coming to retrieve it and she wanted to return it in person. The manager hesitated. This was not protocol. Housekeeping staff do not meet guests. Housekeeping staff are invisible by design. They enter rooms after you leave and leave before you return. They are ghosts who fold towels and replace soap and carry the evidence of your stay away in carts that vanish into service elevators. They are not supposed to have faces. They are certainly not supposed to bring their children. But before the manager could respond, a voice came from behind them. Calm. Low. Controlled. That would be my envelope. Priscilla turned. Kiara turned with her. And there he was. Dominic Sharp stood 6 feet behind them in a navy blazer and an open collar shirt. His shoes were polished. His watch caught the light. He looked exactly like his driver's license photo, except richer in 3 dimensions, the way photographs always underestimate the gravity of a person who carries money in the way they stand. He looked at Priscilla, then at Kiara, then at the prosthetic hand that Kiara had once again tucked behind her hip. The manager retrieved the envelope from the safe. Priscilla took it. She held it in both hands for a moment, the way she had held it in room 2714 2 nights before, and then she extended it toward Dominic. Everything is there, she said. I counted it. 5 stacks, 50,000. And your license and your business card. Dominic took the envelope. He opened it. He looked inside. He counted the stacks the same way she had, with his fingers, peeling each one back. 5 stacks, 10,000 each. All there. He looked at the license. He looked at the business card. He closed the envelope. Then he looked at Priscilla, and Priscilla saw something shift behind his eyes, something old and unresolved, a fracture line running through a man who had spent 3 decades building a fortress around a wound he had never treated. He studied her face, the way a man studies a lock he cannot pick. He was looking for the angle, the play, the hidden motive. Because in Dominic's world, people did not return $50,000 in cash to a stranger without wanting something. You found this 2 nights ago, he said. Yes. And you turned it in. Yes. $50,000. She did not blink. Yes. He reached into his jacket. He pulled out a checkbook. The gesture was smooth, rehearsed, the motion of a man who solved problems with signatures. Let me write you something, he said. For your honesty. Priscilla shook her head. No, thank you. Dominic paused. The pen hovered over the check. He looked at her the way people look at a sentence they have read 3 times but cannot parse. She could see him calculating. How much? 10%, 20. A number large enough to express gratitude but controlled enough to maintain the hierarchy. He was already deciding the amount. He was already framing it as a transaction, because transactions were the only exchanges he understood. "I would like to give you something," he said again, more carefully this time, as if she had misheard him the first time rather than refused. "You do not need to give me anything," Priscilla said. "I did not do it for a reward. I did it because it was not mine." She said it simply. No rehearsal. No pride in her voice. No performance. She said it the way you say something that is so obvious to you it does not require emphasis. Dominic stood there holding his pen and his checkbook and his $50,000, and for the first time in as long as he could remember, he did not know what to say. He had prepared for gratitude. He had prepared for negotiation. He had not prepared for someone who wanted nothing. Priscilla looked at Kiara. She squeezed her daughter's hand once. "We need to go," she said. "My shift starts at noon." She turned. They walked toward the lobby doors. Kiara looked back once, over her shoulder, at the tall man standing alone near the front desk holding an envelope full of money and a checkbook no one wanted. Priscilla did not look back. She walked through the glass doors and into the Las Vegas sun with her daughter beside her and her uniform folded in a plastic bag in her purse because she could not afford to wrinkle it, and she had 6 hours of rooms ahead of her and a life waiting at home that $50,000 could have changed, but did not, because she had decided that some things cost more than money. And Dominic Sharp stood in that lobby for a long time after they left. He stood there until the manager asked if he needed anything else, and he said no and walked out to his car and sat in the driver's seat with the engine off and the envelope on the passenger seat and his mother's face in his mind. 30 years younger, standing in a hotel break room, saying the same words in a different voice. "I did not take it. I did not take it. I did not take it." And no one had believed her. But this woman, this housekeeper with the tired eyes and the cracked hand daughter and the $11 wage and every reason in the world to take it, she had given it back. Not for a reward, not for recognition, not for him. She had given it back for the girl. Dominic did not drive home that night. He drove to his office in Henderson, sat at his desk with the envelope in front of him, and opened his laptop. He typed her name into the hotel's employee portal. Priscilla Herrera, housekeeping. Hired 14 months ago. No disciplinary record. No complaints. No commendations either, because hotels do not commend the people who clean their rooms. They commend the people who sell them. He stared at her employee photo. Standard issue. Blue uniform, hair pinned back, no smile. The kind of photograph that exists only for an ID badge, the kind no one looks at twice. He looked at it for a long time. Then he picked up his phone and called Raymond, his head of operations. A man who had worked for Dominic for 9 years and understood that when the phone rang after midnight, the question was not why but how fast. "I need a background check," Dominic said. "Full workup. Financial, employment, family, medical, if you can get it. The housekeeper who returned my money. I want to know everything." Raymond did not ask why. He never did. By the next afternoon, Dominic had a file. 11 pages. The kind of document that reduces a human being to data points and leaves out everything that matters. Priscilla Herrera. 34 years old. Married. 1 child. Rented apartment. East Side. 2 vehicles registered, 1 non-operational. Credit score below 500. 3 collection accounts active. No criminal record. No civil judgments. No lawsuits filed or pending. Clean. Completely. Unremarkably. Devastatingly clean. A woman drowning in debt who had held $50,000 in her hands and put it back. Dominic read the file twice. He looked for the angle, the setup, the long game. He looked for a boyfriend with a record, a cousin with a scheme, a friend who had coached her on how to play the honest card and cash in later with a lawsuit or a media story. He found nothing. He called the hotel's security chief directly. He asked to review the full footage from the 27th floor for the evening of the discovery. Cole sent it within the hour. Dominic watched every frame. Priscilla entering the room at 7:48, cleaning, finding something, standing still, for what the timestamp said was 6 minutes, but looked like an eternity compressed into a rectangle of grainy surveillance footage. Then resuming her cart. Then leaving at 8:16. She did not make a phone call. She did not text anyone. She did not leave the room and come back. She did not take anything to her car. She found $50,000 in cash, stood still for 6 minutes, and finished cleaning the room. Dominic replayed those 6 minutes 4 times. He watched her body language, the way a man watches a contract for hidden clauses, looking for the tell. The rehearsed gesture. The moment where performance replaces truth. He did not find it, because it was not there. He closed the laptop. He sat in the dark of his office with the Henderson skyline glowing through the window and the file open on his desk and a feeling in his chest he had not felt in 30 years. The same feeling he had when he was 9 years old sitting in a Comfort Inn break room watching his mother cry after being fired for a bracelet she did not take. Disbelief. Not disbelief that someone could be honest. Disbelief that he had spent his entire adult life building a worldview on the assumption that they could not. Priscilla Herrera had no angle. She had no play. She had a husband who could not walk, and a daughter with a broken hand and bills taped to a refrigerator, and a gas light that had been on since Tuesday. And she gave back every dollar. The file did not explain her. The footage did not explain her. Nothing in Dominic's experience explained her. And that was the part that unsettled him most. The next page in Raymond's file was the one Dominic almost did not read. Medical records. Not Priscilla's. Her family's. He had asked for everything, and Raymond had delivered everything, which meant the file contained things that were never meant to be seen by a man in a penthouse who had lost $50,000 the way most people lose a pen. Marco Herrera. Age 36. Spinal cord injury. T12 vertebra. Date of injury. March 14th. 14 months prior. Employer at time of injury. Reyes Commercial Construction. Workers' compensation claim filed and partially approved. Surgery performed at University Medical Center. Total billed $142,000. Insurance covered $68,000. Remaining balance $74,000. Payment plan established. Payments current, but minimum. Monthly obligation $812. Dominic read that number and did the math before he could stop himself. $812 a month on a wage of $11.40 an hour. 40 hours a week if the schedule held. Before taxes, that was roughly $1,800 a month take home. After rent, $1,400. That left $400. The medical payment alone was double what remained. The math did not work. It had never worked. And yet payments were current, which meant Priscilla was making it work the way people at the bottom always make it work, by choosing which impossibility to solve today and which one to carry into tomorrow. The next page was worse. Kiara Herrera. Age 11. Congenital limb difference. Left hand. Symbrachydactyly. Current prosthetic device. Basic myoelectric. Fitted at age 4. Device no longer appropriately sized. Socket causing skin irritation. Wrist mechanism non-functional. Recommended upgrade to multi-articulating prosthetic with custom socket. Estimated cost $62,000. Insurance classification non-essential enhancement. Claim denied twice. $62,000. Dominic stared at that number. He stared at it until the digits stopped being a figure and started being a child. A girl with a cracked plastic hand who hid it behind her hip when people looked too long. A girl who needed something her mother could not afford and whose mother had just returned the exact amount of money that could have made it possible. Dominic closed the file. He stood up. He walked to the window. The strip glowed in the distance. A river of light burning through the desert dark, and somewhere on the other side of that light, in a 2-bedroom apartment with a drained pool and a broken elevator, a woman was lying awake next to a man who could not hold her, doing the math that never added up, having given back the only answer she had ever been handed. In the United States, there are roughly 900,000 hotel housekeepers. Their median annual income is $29,000. More than 40% of them live below the federal poverty line despite working full-time hours. They clean rooms that cost more per night than they earn in a week. They make beds they will never sleep in. They fold towels in bathrooms larger than their kitchens. And at the end of their shifts, they go home to lives the guests will never see and never think about, because the entire architecture of hospitality is built on the principle that the people who maintain comfort must themselves remain invisible. Dominic knew this. He had grown up inside it. His mother had been one of them. And now, reading this file in the dark of a corner office that cost more per month than Priscilla earned in a year, he saw his mother's face layered over the employee photograph on the screen. 2 women, 2 uniforms, 2 sets of hands that cleaned what others dirtied. One accused of stealing, one who proved she did not. And the distance between those 2 women, between that accusation and this act, was the entire length of Dominic's life. Every building he had built, every dollar he had earned, every lock he had installed on every door of every relationship because he believed people took things when no one was watching. This woman had been watched by no one, and she had taken nothing. He picked up the phone, not to call Raymond, not to call his lawyer. He called the hospital where Marco was being treated. 3 days later, Dominic walked back into the hotel lobby. He wore the same blazer, the same watch, the same shoes that made no sound on the marble floor. He asked at the front desk for Priscilla. The manager hesitated. Housekeeping staff were not typically paged to the lobby, but Dominic had a way of asking things that did not leave room for refusal. Not aggressive, just certain. The certainty of a man who had decided something and was now simply executing it. Priscilla came down the service elevator still in uniform. Her hair was pinned. Her hands smelled like bleach. She saw Dominic and stopped. The expression on her face was not surprise. It was caution, the particular caution of a woman who has already said no and suspects she is about to be asked again. "I looked into your situation," Dominic said. Priscilla's jaw tightened. "My situation. Your husband. Your daughter. The medical bills." She did not blink. "That is none of your business." "You are right," he said. "It is not. But I want to help. I did not ask for your help. I returned your money because it was not mine. That is where this ends. It does not have to end there." "Yes, it does." She said it the way a person says something they have already decided at a depth language cannot reach. Not angry. Not defensive. Something deeper than both. The quiet fury of a woman who understood exactly what was happening. A rich man standing in a lobby offering to rescue a poor woman. The shape of the story was older than both of them. The powerful hand reaching down, the grateful face looking up. She had seen it 1,000 times. In movies, in commercials, in the pitying eyes of people who dropped coins into cups without ever asking the person holding the cup what they actually needed. "I am not a project," she said. "I am not a story you tell at a dinner party about the honest housekeeper who reminded you that good people still exist. I did what I did because of who I am, not because of who you are, and I will not take your money now after I just gave it back. That would make the giving back mean nothing." Dominic stood still. His hand was in his pocket. His checkbook was in his jacket. His mouth was open and nothing was coming out because every word he had prepared assumed she would say yes, and she had said no with a clarity that left no space for negotiation. She looked at him one more time. The same quiet eyes. The same steady face. The same woman who had held $50,000 and let go. "Thank you for coming back," she said. "But I have rooms to finish." She turned. She walked back toward the service elevator. Her shoes squeaked on the marble. The sound was small and ordinary, and it echoed through the lobby like a sentence that needed no translation. If this story is reaching you, take a second to subscribe. Not for me. For the people who do the right thing when no one is watching, and never get seen. These stories need to be told. Now, let us continue. Dominic stood in the lobby for 11 minutes after Priscilla left. He counted them. Counting was what he did when the world stopped making sense. He counted floors in buildings. He counted clauses in contracts. He counted the seconds between a question and an answer to measure whether someone was telling the truth or constructing it. 11 minutes. And in those 11 minutes, something shifted inside the architecture of Dominic Sharp. Not a collapse. Not a revelation. A crack. The kind of crack that starts in a foundation and does not bring the building down, but changes the way it settles, the way it holds weight, the way it stands against wind. She had refused him. Not his money. Him. The version of him that believed generosity was a transaction. that kindness was a currency, that helping someone meant positioning yourself above them and reaching down. She had refused that entire framework with 6 words. "I did not ask for your help." And she was right. He drove back to Henderson. He sat in his office. He opened the file again. Marco's medical bills. Kiara's prosthetic estimate. The collection notices. The past due rent. He read every number the way an architect reads a blueprint. Not looking for the problem, looking for the structure. Then he picked up the phone. He called the billing department at University Medical Center. He did not use his name. He used the foundation's name, Sharp Family Trust, a charitable entity he had established 6 years ago for tax purposes and had never once used for anything resembling its stated mission. He told the billing coordinator he wanted to pay the outstanding balance on a patient account, the full amount, anonymously. He gave them Marco's account number. He gave them the routing information. He asked that no donor name be attached to the payment. He asked that the patient be notified only that the balance had been resolved through a charitable contribution. $74,000. Gone. Erased from a refrigerator door in a 2-bedroom apartment like a stain wiped from glass. The next call was to a pediatric prosthetics clinic in Phoenix, one of 3 in the country that specialized in multi-articulating devices for children with congenital limb differences. He spoke to the intake coordinator. He described Kiara's condition using the language from Raymond's file. He asked about timelines, fitting procedures, follow-up care. He asked what a full course of treatment would cost for an 11-year-old girl whose current device was cracked at the thumb and frozen at the wrist. $62,000. Fitting sessions over 3 months. A custom socket molded to the child's residual limb. Individual finger articulation. A cosmetic covering in a skin tone matched to the patient. Follow-up adjustments every 6 months as the child grew. He paid it in full. He established a maintenance fund to cover adjustments through age 18. He asked that all correspondence be directed to the Sharp Family Trust and that the family be contacted by the clinic directly as recipients of a pediatric prosthetic scholarship. Scholarship. The word tasted strange in his mouth. He had never given anything away without knowing exactly who would see it. But that was the point. Priscilla had drawn a line. She would not take his help if it came from his hand. So he removed his hand from the equation. He gave the way she had returned, without performance, without audience, without the need to be thanked. The third call was quieter. He phoned the hotel's general manager, not the shift manager, not the floor supervisor, the person who decided which employees were promoted, which were given full-time benefits, which were moved from night shift to day shift where the tips were better and the hours were kinder. He did not ask for a favor. He asked a question. He asked whether the hotel had an internal advancement program for long-term housekeeping staff. He asked whether someone with 14 months of clean service and 0 complaints might be eligible for a supervisory training track. He asked it the way he asked everything, with the precision of a man who already knew the answer and simply wanted the other person to arrive at it on their own. The general manager said she would look into it. Dominic said he appreciated that. He did not mention Priscilla's name. He did not need to. The general manager was not a fool. She understood that when a guest who had just recovered $50,000 in cash, thanks to a specific housekeeper called personally to discuss employee advancement, the connection was not difficult to draw. And in his office, alone, with the city lights pressing against the window like witnesses, Dominic opened his desk drawer and took out the only photograph he kept at work. His mother, Gloria, 31 years old, standing behind the front desk of a Comfort Inn in a blue uniform with her name on a tag and her dignity in her spine, and no one in the world willing to believe she had not stolen a bracelet she had never touched. No one had seen her. That was the wound. Not the firing. Not the poverty that followed. The invisibility. The way the world had looked through her like she was made of the same glass she spent her life cleaning. She had been honest her entire life and no one had ever once stopped to notice. He looked at the photograph. He looked at the file. And he understood, finally, what he was doing. Not charity, not rescue, witness. He was seeing her. The way no one had seen his mother. 2 weeks passed. Priscilla came home on a Tuesday evening to a quiet apartment. Marco was in the living room in his wheelchair, the television on low, the blue light flickering across his face. He did not look up when she came in. He had stopped looking up months ago, not because he did not care, but because looking up meant seeing her exhaustion and he could not fix it, and watching helplessness. Compound helplessness is a particular kind of suffering that erodes a marriage from the inside, like water, under a foundation. She set her bag down. She hung her jacket on the hook by the door. She walked to the refrigerator the way she walked to it every night, to face the bills, to count the damages, to do the math. The hospital invoice was gone, not moved, not buried under other papers. Gone. In its place was a letter. University Medical Center. Department of Patient Accounts. Patient. Marco Herrera. Account status. Paid in full. Payment source. Charitable contribution. Sharp Family Trust. Remaining balance. $0.00. Priscilla read the letter 3 times. She stood in front of the refrigerator, with her coat still smelling like bleach, and her shoes still damp from mopping, and she read it 3 times because the first time the words did not make sense, and the second time they made sense, but she did not believe them, and the third time she believed them, and her knees almost gave out. The next morning there was a call from a clinic in Phoenix. A woman with a warm voice and careful pronunciation asking to speak with the parent or guardian of Kiara Herrera regarding a pediatric prosthetics scholarship. Full coverage. Custom device. 3 fitting sessions. Maintenance through age 18. Priscilla did not cry. She hung up the phone and sat on the edge of the bed and pressed both hands against her face and breathed the way you breathe when the air itself has changed and your lungs do not know what to do with something that is not pain. Then the anger came. Not gratitude, not relief. Anger. The fast, sharp, disorienting anger of a woman who had drawn a boundary and watched it be crossed with kindness. She had said no. She had been clear. She had told him to his face that she was not a project, not a story, not a rescue. And he had done it anyway. He had gone around her. Behind her. He had found the doors she had locked and opened them without her permission, and called it generosity. She drove to his office. She left Kiara at school. She did not call ahead. She walked through the glass doors of Sharp Capital Ventures on a Wednesday morning in her hotel uniform because she did not have time to change, and she did not care. The receptionist tried to stop her. Priscilla walked past her the way water moves past a stone. She found his office on the 4th floor. The door was open. Dominic was standing by the window with a coffee cup in his hand, and the city behind him. "You had no right," she said. Dominic turned. He looked at her. He set the coffee down. "I told you no," she said. "I looked you in the eye, and I told you I did not want your help, and you went behind my back and paid my husband's bills and signed my daughter up for a program I did not ask for. You took my choice away. You decided for me. That is not kindness. That is control with better lighting." The words landed in the room like stones dropped into still water. Dominic did not move. He did not defend himself. He stood by the window and let her speak, because he knew she had earned the right to say every word, and he knew that interrupting a woman who had been interrupted by systems her entire life would be the worst thing he could do in this moment. Priscilla was breathing hard. Her hands were at her sides, fists clenched. The same hands that had held $50,000 and given them back, the same hands that scrubbed bathtubs and patched prosthetic thumbs and taped bills to a refrigerator door every night like a ritual of controlled suffering. "Why?" she said. "Why did you do it?" Dominic was quiet for a long time. Then he walked to his desk. He opened the drawer. He took out the photograph. Gloria, 31, blue uniform, name tag. He held it out to Priscilla, the way a man holds out a wound he has never shown anyone. "My mother cleaned hotel rooms," he said. "Comfort Inn, Boulder Highway, 20 years. She was accused of stealing a guest's bracelet. She did not take it. They fired her anyway. No investigation. No proof. Just an accusation, and a pink slip and a woman walking out of a building with her name badge still on." He paused. "She never recovered. She died at 55 in a 1-bedroom apartment, with medical bills on the counter, and a reputation that followed her like a shadow she could not outrun. And I built all of this because I thought if I made enough money, if I controlled enough rooms, if I owned enough buildings, I could undo what happened to her. I could not. His voice did not break. It lowered. The way a voice lowers when it reaches the floor of something it has been avoiding for decades. You gave back $50,000 you needed more than I did. You did it in front of your daughter. You did it without hesitation. And I stood there, watching you walk away, and all I could think was, that is what my mother would have done. And no one ever gave her the chance to prove it. Silence. The office was quiet. The city moved outside the window, but inside the room time had folded. Priscilla looked at the photograph. She looked at the woman in the blue uniform. She saw the hands. Working hands. Hands that knew bleach and polish, and the weight of a cart pushed down a hallway that never ended. She did not speak for a long time. When she did, her voice was different. Not softer. Deeper. The way a voice changes when anger finds the thing beneath it, the thing it was protecting. She looks kind, Priscilla said. She was, Dominic said. Priscilla set the photograph on the desk. She placed it gently, the way you place something that belongs to someone else's grief. Then she looked at him. I will accept the help, she said. Not because I need it. Because your mother deserved to be believed. And if this is how you believe her, then I will not stand in the way of that. Dominic nodded. He did not say thank you. He did not smile. He nodded the way a man nods when a door he has been pushing against for 30 years finally opens, and the light on the other side is not what he expected, but it is enough. It was enough. The recovery was not a miracle. Miracles belong to stories that want applause. This was slower. Harder. The kind of healing that happens in inches and setbacks and Tuesday afternoons that feel no different from Monday until you look back 6 months later and realize the ground beneath you has shifted. Marco had the surgery in Phoenix. A specialist who had reviewed his imaging and said the words cautiously optimistic, the way doctors say things they believe but refuse to guarantee. The operation took 7 hours. Priscilla sat in the waiting room with Kiara beside her, the girl drawing on a pad of paper with her right hand while her left, the cracked prosthetic, rested in her lap. Kiara did not ask where the money came from. She did not ask why they were in Phoenix. She asked if her father would be able to walk her to school when it was over. Priscilla said maybe. Maybe was the most honest word she had. Marco came home 6 weeks later. He was not healed. He was healing. The difference is everything. Healed is a destination. Healing is a direction. He could feel his toes. He could shift his weight. He could stand for 11 seconds before his body reminded him that standing was a negotiation, not a right. 11 seconds. He counted them the way Priscilla had once counted stacks of $100 bills, with trembling hands and disbelief. Kiara got her new hand in January. The fitting took 3 sessions. The clinician was a woman named Diane who spoke to Kiara the way you speak to a person, not a patient. She measured. She molded. She explained every mechanism in words an 11-year-old could follow. When the device was ready, Kiara slid her residual limb into the socket and the fingers moved. All 5. Independent articulation. She opened her hand. She closed it. She picked up a pencil. She picked up a pencil with her left hand and she wrote her name. 5 letters. Kiara. The letters were shaky. The lines were uneven. But they were hers, written by a hand that worked. And Priscilla, standing behind her daughter in a clinic 2,000 miles from the hotel where she cleaned rooms, pressed her fist against her mouth and cried the way mothers cry when the world finally gives their child something it should have given all along. Dominic did not visit. He did not call. He received updates through the clinic, and through the hospital, and through the quiet, invisible network of a man who had learned that the best way to help was to disappear into the help itself. He did not need to be seen. He had spent his whole life needing to be seen. Building towers and buying watches and wearing shoes that whispered money because he wanted the world to look at him and know that Gloria's son had made it. But Priscilla had taught him something no balance sheet could measure. She had taught him that being seen is not the same as being known, and being known is not the same as being trusted. And trust, real trust, the kind that lives between two people who have nothing in common except the weight they carry, is not built with money. It is built with restraint. The relationship between Priscilla and Dominic settled into something neither of them had a word for. Not friendship, not obligation, not the transactional symmetry of donor and recipient, something else. The quiet mutual recognition of two people who had both been shaped by hotel rooms, one by cleaning them, one by remembering the woman who did. They spoke on the phone once a month. Brief calls. He asked about Marco. She asked about his foundation. Neither of them mentioned the $50,000. It sat between them, like a stone, at the bottom of a river, always there, never visible, shaping the current without being part of it. Priscilla was promoted. Not because Dominic arranged it, because the general manager reviewed her file, saw 14 months of spotless performance, and offered her a supervisory training position on the day shift. Better hours. Benefits. $1.60 more per hour. It was not wealth. It was not rescue. It was recognition. The kind that comes from inside a system, when someone inside that system finally looks down and sees the person holding it up. She still cleaned rooms on Saturdays. Voluntary overtime. Not because she needed the money the way she used to. Because the work was hers. It had always been hers. And she refused to let go of the thing that had taught her who she was. And on a shelf in her kitchen, between the cactus magnet and the school photo, she placed something new, a drawing. Kiara had made it on the day she wrote her name for the first time with her new hand. A picture of two people standing in front of a building, a tall woman in a blue uniform, a small girl with two hands, both open, both reaching. Beneath it, in shaky letters, a single sentence, "Mama does the right thing." Priscilla looked at that drawing every morning before she left for work. She did not frame it. She taped it to the refrigerator, right where the hospital bill used to be. Because some things hold their value better when they are placed exactly where the pain once lived. Like a garden planted in a wound. Like a window cut into a wall that used to be a prison. Like a smile that was never about the mouth but always about what the eyes had chosen to carry. And that, more than any dollar amount, was the inheritance she was leaving her daughter. Months later, Priscilla stood in the doorway of room 2714. The same room. Same view of the strip from the 27th floor. Same window where the desert light came through in long, flat sheets that turned the carpet gold in the late afternoon. She was not cleaning it. She was standing beside a woman named Adriana, 22 years old, 3 weeks into the job, pushing a cart that was too heavy and wearing shoes that were too new and carrying the particular nervousness of someone who has not yet learned that the hardest part of this work is not the work itself, but the invisibility that comes with it. Priscilla showed her how to strip a bed in under 2 minutes, how to check the corners of a fitted sheet for tears before putting it on, how to run a hand beneath a mattress edge to check for items guests leave behind. People leave things, Priscilla said. Phones, wallets, jewelry, sometimes cash. When you find something, you log it. You turn it in. Every time. Adriana nodded. She was listening the way new employees listen, with half attention and half anxiety about doing something wrong. Priscilla touched her arm. She stopped her. "I am not telling you the policy," she said. "I am telling you who you are in this room. You are the only person here. No camera, no manager, no one watching. And the thing you do when no one is watching is the thing that tells you what you are made of. Not what the hotel is made of, what you are made of." Adriana looked at her. Something shifted behind the girl's eyes. Not understanding yet, but the beginning of it. Priscilla finished showing her the room. She checked the bathroom. She checked the minibar. She ran her hand along the edge of the mattress, the left side, the side closest to the window, and for a moment her fingers paused there, on the seam where the mattress met the box spring, the exact spot where a manila envelope had once changed the direction of her life. Nothing there. Just fabric. Just dust. Just the ordinary quiet of a room that had been cleaned 1,000 times since and would be cleaned 1,000 times more. She walked out. The hallway stretched long and fluorescent. Adriana pushed her cart toward the next room. Priscilla watched her go, and felt something she had not felt in a long time. Not pride, exactly. Something gentler. the feeling of a thing being passed forward. A way of moving through the world that cannot be taught in a manual or enforced by a camera. Only shown. Only lived. She took the elevator down. She walked through the lobby. The marble floor reflected her shoes the way it had reflected Kiara's the morning they came to return the envelope. But this time, no one looked. No one inventoried her. She was not a housekeeper with a story. She was a supervisor going home at the end of a shift. Outside, the Las Vegas sun pressed against the glass doors like a hand held flat. Priscilla pushed through, and the heat hit her the way it always did, dry and total and familiar. She checked her phone. A photo from Marco. He was standing, both hands on the kitchen counter, both feet on the floor. 11 seconds had become 32. Behind him, Kiara sat at the table doing homework with both hands. The left one held the paper steady. The right one wrote. The handwriting was still uneven, still growing, still becoming. Priscilla looked at that photo. She looked at it the way she had once looked at $50,000 in a manila envelope on the 27th floor of a hotel that was not hers, in a world that rarely saw her, in a life that never had enough. She smiled. The quiet kind. The kind that does not need an audience. The kind Kiara had once pressed her palm against to read. A housekeeper making $11.40 an hour had found $50,000 in a pillowcase at a Las Vegas hotel. She gave it back, not for the reward, not for the story, not because someone was watching, because someone would always be watching. A girl with a new hand and her mother's steady eyes, learning what it looks like when a person chooses who they are, and that was worth more than anything left behind in any room. Now, let me step outside this story for a moment, because while the names and events you just heard are fictional, the weight behind them is not. In the United States, medical debt is the leading cause of personal bankruptcy. Over 100 million Americans currently carry some form of medical debt. Nearly 1 in 4 households report owing money for medical care they could not afford at the time they received it. And among families earning below $40,000 a year, the burden is not financial stress. It is financial destruction. 1 emergency room visit, 1 surgery, 1 diagnosis. And the math that was already impossible becomes something closer to a verdict. Construction workers in America face one of the highest rates of workplace injury of any profession. Falls are the #1 cause of death on job sites. And for those who survive, spinal cord injuries carry a lifetime cost that ranges from $1 to nearly $5 million depending on severity. Workers' compensation covers a fraction. Insurance covers a fraction of the fraction. And the rest is carried by families who were already carrying more than they could hold. There are approximately 2 million people living with limb loss or limb difference in the United States. 40% of them are under the age of 18. The cost of a prosthetic limb ranges from $5,000 for a basic device to over $100,000 for advanced multi-articulating technology. Insurance companies routinely classify upper limb prosthetics as non-essential, particularly for children, despite overwhelming clinical evidence that early access to functional prosthetics improves motor development, psychological well-being, and long-term independence. A child should not have to glue her own thumb together because the system that is supposed to help her has decided her hand is optional. And then, there is this. In 2019, a widely cited study on lost wallets conducted across 40 countries found that people were more likely to return wallets containing larger amounts of money, not less. The researchers expected the opposite. They expected that as the value increased, the temptation would win. It did not. Across cultures, across income levels, across every demographic boundary researchers could draw, the pattern held. People, on average, are more honest than we assume. The story we tell ourselves about human selfishness is not the whole story. It is not even the main one, but it is the one that gets told most often because cynicism is easier to broadcast than trust. If you are watching this, and you are carrying medical debt that feels impossible, the $4 Foundation helps patients apply for charity care and hospital financial assistance programs at no cost. RIP, medical debt purchases, and forgives medical debt in collections. The Amputee Coalition provides resources and support for individuals and families affected by limb loss and limb difference. If you are a worker who has been injured on the job, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration maintains a hotline for reporting unsafe conditions and accessing information about your rights. If your employer has denied or delayed a workers' compensation claim, legal aid organizations in most states offer free consultations. These organizations are real. The help they offer is real, and the people they serve are the same people this story was written about. Not characters. People, doing the hardest thing in the world, which is surviving a system that was not built for them and choosing, every single day, to remain who they are inside it. This story is a work of fiction. Priscilla, Marco, Kiara, and Dominic are not real people. Their names, their circumstances, and the events described did not happen. But the conditions that shaped them are real. Medical bankruptcy is real. Workplace injuries with inadequate coverage are real. Children denied functional prosthetics because an insurance company called a working hand non-essential. That is real. I made this video because some people are only visible when they are useful and invisible the moment they stop. The person who cleans your hotel room is not a uniform. She is a mother, a wife, a woman making decisions every day that most of us will never have to face. And the choice she makes when no one is watching is not just her choice. It is a mirror. It shows us who we believe people are, and more importantly, who we believe they can be. If this story stayed with you, share it. Not for me. For the woman pushing the cart. For the child with the cracked hand. For every person who did the right thing in an empty room and was never thanked for it. They deserve to be seen.